Welcome to the latest episode of Music That Left Its Mark. This time I'm joined by Jude Kay. Hi, Jude.
Hello.
Jude is 16 years old and is currently studying music. Where are you studying, Jude?
At Carlisle College. Carlisle
Carlisle
Music College.
College. And what's the long term goal with the studies?
I think I'd probably like to go to university, and then after that, but definitely just something in music. Ideally, obviously, a career as an artist, but that's not always feasible, especially not for a jazz musician. So, I, other things I'd like to do, sort of like film music composition, um, and maybe teaching music.
Okay.
Writing music for TV shows and films is something I would love to do, or just for people for whatever purpose.
Yeah. In the industry, just creating music, though, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also understand that you are what's the term? You play many musical instruments.
Yeah.
So what can you play?
Um. Well, bass is sort of my main instrument, but it's about on par with piano. Bass and piano are my main instruments. But I started on guitar, so I'm still I'm okay at that. I can get by. Um. And I took some drum lessons for a while, so I can play drums half decently.
Cool. So you'll be able to lay down your own tracks and put it all together. Fantastic. And have you done much composing of your own stuff or?
Um, yeah, I do a lot, just sort of in my spare time, but I often don't like finish things. I'll just start new things and move on and on. But yeah, I've like recently someone brought an original song into a band, and I sort of like put a guitar part to it, and I'll come up with something on my piano and write it on sheet music and stuff like that. I like to write on my iPad with on like a music scoring app. I'll write like orchestral pieces or whatever.
Fantastic. So that's a big win for me because I can say that before you were famous, you were on the podcast with me. So that'll be a big win for me. Fantastic. Um, we'll talk a little bit about your choices if that's all right. You a good mix of some different music. You mentioned that you're a big jazz fan.
Yeah.
And many of your choices are centered around jazz. So your first choice was track A Solo Dancer by Charles Mingus.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that? What's the attraction to that particular
Um,
number?
it's that one's kind of not the song itself, but it's from this wonderful album um,
Okay,
called "The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady" by Charles Mingus, 1963, I believe. It's this avant-garde um, jazz album. He's a bassist and pianist and like a virtuoso composer. Um, and this was his first album for this new label, and he said that this was sort of the first time that like a label had let him properly express what he wanted to his audience. So it's sort of his music exactly as he wanted it. Um, the reason I picked this song is I would say it's my favourite song off of that album, and it sets the tone perfectly for the album. It has elements that are sort of fast and intense, and then it has these sections that are very slow ballad like. But the album it's a strange one I have a lot to say about it whenever I talk about it to people. Um, it's like rather a famous jazz album, but it's not your typical straight ahead jazz. It's got a lot of improvisation as jazz does, but it's also very meticulously composed, and it's very complex. So they used a lot of different takes in the studio spliced together. It's never been reproduced live. It's one big piece divided into 6 movements, partially written as a ballet, um, which you can kind of hear in the music. It's kind of slightly danceable. Um, Mingus himself called it ethnic folk dance music or something, but it incorporates like Spanish and African influences. But yeah, this is track 8, it's the first movement. And yeah, it sets the tone really well. It's a very hauntingly beautiful album. It's mournful and it expresses a lot of suffering, but it also expresses a sense of hope. It's completely it's like an 11-piece band of piano and horns and some classical guitar, and drums, but it's instrumental, but it's very sort of maybe difficult to listen to, but he was definitely a genius, but he struggled to communicate. But this album, I feel like, communicates in and of itself.
Yeah, and often artists who do struggle to communicate, that they have a kind of an opus moment, don't they? They produce a piece of work that is genuinely, genuinely what they want to convey. And as I mentioned to you, we had a chat before we started recording, and jazz largely passed me by, apart from a lot of the mainstream, what you consider to be mainstream, Dave Brubeck, and Nina Simone and the likes. But I have listened. Obviously, I always listen to all the choices that the guests send me and want to talk about. And without liking, without making it, likening it to, it put me in mind of, and I don't know whether you're familiar, whether you listen, but I used to listen to a lot of Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And I suppose in many ways it's very similar in its kind of its makeup and composition, that it takes you on a journey.
Yeah.
And obviously different audiences, different styles completely. Pink Floyd is kind of probably prog rock, slightly more commercial, even though they'd probably hate me for saying that,
Yeah.
because they never wanted to be, commercial in that sense. But yeah, it put me in that mind, and I did say to you that some jazz I find very chaotic and I struggle with, and in others I just find it's just nice background music. It's just on, and you can just listen. But the way you've conveyed that you kind of how you feel about that as well, it's kind of made me want to go and listen to the whole album. Really,
Oh, I would definitely recommend it.
certainly something that I would have a look at, because you've spoken very eloquently about it as well, which is, and I think when people take the time, you're too young to probably remember when I was your age, we used to make mixtapes for people.
Yeah.
And it was always said that if somebody gave you a mixtape, or they bought you a song, and they gave you a song, they wanted you to, there was something that were trying to tell you, there was a message in there. So yeah, I mean, like when somebody speaks quite kind of passionately about something, it kind of makes me want to go and have a listen and
Yeah.
think, what is it that speaks to you, that speaks to you? What's the message that you're getting from it? So yeah, interesting choice.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing that really makes me love the album, that I always mention as a side thing to people, is it's when you listen to an album like you really love, or a song that you really love, it's always your own interpretation of it, but you kind of feel like you want to know maybe what the artist intended, or what they think about it, or you want to know all the in-depths of the mind as well as them composing it. But there's a liner notes in the CD or vinyl, but in the booklet there's a whole sort of essay written by Mingus, and then another short piece by his psychotherapist, and he just talks about so many things, and it almost seems kind of like the music it's a bit crazed and it's sort of all over the place, but he's definitely expressing a consistent idea. Like at one point he talks about music critics a lot in the notes, and he says about how critics in schools get paid to teach young people just to listen to records. But he also states that, you know, these critics are brainwashing young people who are too young to understand that if you're going to like something that's beautiful, no one can tell you how to do it if it doesn't just happen. And I think that's just so profound, because you can't teach passion, you can't teach love, you can't teach suffering. You know, it's just, and that's the thing. It comes out in the music, and you don't have to understand the theory or anything, you know. But it's one of the things you can't teach. It's very
I like that. That is a really beautiful sentiment. Um, what's that saying? Is it the art? Because when we're talking about art here, aren't we? It's
yeah,
art.
absolutely.
Art should disturb the sane and calm the insane, or sort of something like that, isn't it? It's there's
Yeah, yeah,
some saying that it's art meant to disturb the people that are kind of settled, but obviously it's calming for those that aren't. And yeah, what you've talked about, and kind of the fact you mentioned the psychotherapist made notes on the album, tells us a lot about Mingus.
yeah.
But listening to the music, and again just thinking back to what I heard, yeah, I kind of see that kind. He's kind. It's almost a cleaning of his thoughts, isn't it? It's almost
He
just
says as
get it
well.
out.
He said, this music is only a wave of styles and ideas and waves of little ideas in my head. And he says about society. He says that my mind is encompassed through living in a society that calls itself sane. So clearly, it's sort of this um, um, not rebelliousness, but like alienation from society, which is something I think we all feel at times, and I definitely, it's definitely a big part of my life and how I feel as an artist is kind of when you feel very alienated from the rest of the world, and you can, I mean, yeah, you can hear that in the fact that the music is weird but haunting.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Definitely worth a listen for those that haven't heard and kind of entertained jazz as a genre. Definitely worth a listen. Cool. So your second choice, "The Curtain" by Snarky Puppy. Again, somebody I was totally passed me by, unaware of.
Yeah,
But a great name for a band as well. Snarky
yeah,
Puppy, I like that. But again, your choices really have surprised me, because, like I say, it was never really my thing. But there was nothing that I listened to that I thought, oh, don't like that.
yeah.
Kind of, oh yeah, I could listen to that. So what's the story behind this one then, "The Curtain"?
So got another physical copy for all the albums I really like. That's what I buy on CD.
Yeah, snap.
Um, but yeah, this is again. It's kind of like the I like the whole album, but this is just one choice I had to make. But I just think this is a brilliant example of this band, and the it is somewhat jazz, but also like I think it's quite accessible. Um, Maybe not to pop listeners, but definitely to any musicians, because all of the musicians are just they're they're really on it. They're like top level, and a lot of them are jazz musicians. They come from gospel backgrounds, which of course is really skilled music. But they incorporate rock and world music and jazz, of course. But yeah, they're very accessible, and a lot of sort of rock musicians engage with them as well, because they've got songs that are like that. And the band leader, he's the bassist, and he composes a lot of the music, but not all of it. Um, he actually he said Sark Puppy is just a pop band that improvises a lot, because they are they're quite accessible, even though they also use quite complex jazz elements. But this song is from it's from a 2014 album called Silver. Um, they collaborated with an orchestra from the Netherlands, I think it is, called Metropole Orkest. Um, the band itself is usually like sort of 19 members. When they're live, it's like 10 maybe, but it's kind of an ensemble. But they combined that with like a 50-person orchestra as well. Um, and
Yeah, because I think that particular song, when I build the playlists of your choices, I'm sure that was the one that there isn't a recorded copy available anywhere. It's all live copy. It's all live versions.
um, yeah, well, it says live on Amazon Music, Spotify, and stuff. It's another unique thing about Snarky Puppy. Quite a few of their albums, maybe half of them, but it's one thing that they do that you don't really see is they record their albums in a studio, but they record it in a very big open space, so they have an audience. Like the audience wears
Okay,
headphones, so they can hear all of the instruments and all the mics. Um, but it is still a studio recording. Like that is the final take. Um, but
that's
but
a
the
different way
audience
of
is
doing
just
it.
there to watch it, and um, they do like they usually do just like a couple nights, and they do 2 or 3 takes of each song, and they improvise all the solos. It's a different take every time, um, and then sometimes they release the alternate takes. But yeah, so the audience gets to see maybe takes that weren't there, and you can hear in the recording like after a solo, the audience will cheer and stuff like that. So it's not live, but it's like a live studio recording.
Yeah, and I suppose that from an audience perspective, I suppose that's really good because you're almost part of the creative process,
Yeah,
just by being there. Because I'm guessing the atmosphere and the tension and all that will change the way the improvisations roll
yeah, yeah,
and which way they go with it. So yeah, that's a fascinating. And this is exactly this is the reason why I started the podcast. Is getting into why people love, what it is they love about the music, whether it's the way it's created or the process that goes into making it, and that's really fascinating. Again, kind of makes me want to go and have a look and have
yeah,
a little bit of research into kind of the way they make their music because that is very different from
yeah,
your mainstream stuff, isn't it? Which is just studios and the bass player lays a line down and then the drummer goes and does his bit and then they stitch it all together.
yeah,
Whereas this is let's hit it and almost going back to bands like the Beatles and things. They used to just go in a studio and just play their instruments and do a song and do a take.
yeah,
But obviously introducing the audience in there, that's a different dynamic again.
yeah. I haven't spoken much about the song. I feel like speaking about the albums a lot because I just love all the albums, obviously. But yeah, it's like I mean, obviously as you saw, it's like 15 minutes long. But not some of the songs are only 5 minutes. Some of them are 10. They've got that 15-minute one. But yeah, this is their more orchestral album. They've actually collaborated with that orchestra a second time um, this year, and the album is out today. Just came out today.
Okay,
Um,
interesting.
but yeah, I think that's one of the best works. Like Michael League, the leader, composed all of those songs himself, all of those pieces. But yeah, that one it goes to a lot of different areas. It begins very orchestral, um, kind of well not classical, I guess contemporary classical. It kind of sounds like film score music, which is, I think it could be very effective in a film. And then you go into this more jazzy solo. Then it comes down. You have a really sort of funky bit with a really cool brass melody. And then there's like a weird bass solo with like wah effects and stuff. Then you bring it back down. There's a synth solo from um, Maestro Corey Henry, who's one of the best keyboardists in the world. And then you get this solo piano, all the instruments cut out, and it's just piano. And then you end it on this really soft orchestral note. It goes to a lot of places, and it just shows how versatile they are and how incredible and yeah versatile all the musicians are. Like definitely just world class. But it's definitely like they're a musician. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think everybody can listen to them. It's not too crazy. It's very nice.
Yeah, I got from them that like you used the term accessible,
Yeah,
and when I listened to it, it was instantly more appealing. kind of, if it came on the radio, you'd kind of listen to it, and
Yeah.
it's almost the kind of thing that you might find, you might get on a radio station. It would just pop on there. Maybe not the 15-minute version, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't be out of place on a radio station that plays a good mix of music.
Yeah, it's produced very nicely as well, like really clean, because it's well, it is modern. Um, but yeah, so it's not jarring to your ears or anything.
Yeah, cool. Another good choice. Yeah. So moving on to number three now, a name I did know and
Yeah,
a song I had heard. But interesting, it is interesting,
yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
a lesser known one. I didn't know if you'd
Yeah.
heard it.
So we're talking about Saturn by Stevie Wonder, and most people obviously know Stevie Wonder. They know his work. They know his obviously the big hitters that do get played on the radio quite a lot. That people have probably got in the collections or on the downloads or the playlists or whatever. Superstition and all that kind of stuff. But this is I'd almost forgot about it
Hmm.
till I seen it on your list. So it was nice for me to revisit that. So why that one from Stevie?
Um, I mean, obviously Stevie Wonder's incredible. I mean, he can he can play awesome jazz stuff and use really weird chords, but he makes amazing music that everyone can listen to. But I think this encompasses like a large part of the appeal of Stevie Wonder. Um, is it's all about um, similarly to Charles Mingus's album. It kind of calls for love, peace, acceptance, But this song it's all about like his. Well, I think so anyway. But I think it's quite obvious in the lyrics. It's about sort of his ideal world, and it's just a society that's filled with it has no suffering. It's just filled with happiness and connection, and there's no hate and no war, especially. But obviously he's calling it Saturn. He's saying that's obviously hard to reach and it's not feasible. It's otherworldly, But it's kind of you can tell there's a disappointment of seeing war happen all around the world, especially in the 70s.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it encompasses his appeal, and it's nicely written. It's got nice music, but definitely the lyrics and the message
yeah,
is what's in it for me.
and it kind of, yeah, you're right. It sits in a window in time, that song, doesn't it? There was a lot of artists, but particularly black artists,
Yeah,
from America and the Caribbean and things at that time in that decade. They were writing music like that about love, peace, understanding, all that kind of stuff. There was some really interesting ones, but yeah, interesting how like Saturn never. It's almost been forgotten by the world.
yeah.
Um,
I think it's just a B-side to another single, wasn't it, or something?
yeah, it's interesting that one of the radio stations I listen to, they do a Forgotten Gems segment, and as soon as I seen that, I thought, I bet they've not played that on the radio in a long time.
Yeah,
That's got to be worth a WhatsApp message to them to get that on the air, because it's a beautiful song.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's Stevie Wonder. I mean, mass
yeah,
market appeal as well. But you're right in as much as he transcends many genres of
yeah.
music.
He has so much music as well. Just never runs out of ideas.
Yeah, and you look back when you look at his career, the collaborations, the just cheesy pop songs, the
Yeah,
borderline rock songs, and then you've got this kind of stuff that's kind of really rooted in, I suppose, he's kind of his truth in terms
yeah,
of his, like we talk about people, people produce music, but often it's not the music that they love to play and want
yeah,
to produce. It's whereas this feels like something that he wanted to do. Like, probably, again, like you said, that the reason it ends up on a B side rather than the record label saying, "Oh, there's an A side there for you." It's we'll stick it on a B and it'll get lost in time.
yeah.
which is sad. But people like yourself and other people out there listening keep it alive, which is brilliant because it's really good to bring it to And I was, I sound like an old man now, but obviously you're 16 years old. The fact that you're listening to Stevie Wonder is like, I can't help but think something good in that. That good music doesn't get old. It
No,
ages
definitely not.
well, and that's definitely one of them for me. So yeah, brilliant. Yeah, three down. So good, all good choices so far. And then we get into some interesting song titles.
Hmm.
So your fourth choice, "In the Aeroplane Over the Sea" by Neutral Milk Hotel. Again, another fabulous name for a band.
Hmm. Yeah, they it might sound obscure, but it is it's quite a landmark album. I think it was 1996. Um, um, but in indie circles, it's well maybe not modern indie like Sam Fender and stuff, but in independent music,
Yeah, yeah.
and slightly lesser known folk slash rock pop, but not popular music circles. It's a landmark, and it's inspired a lot of musicians. But yeah, it's the title track from that album. They only released two albums, but it was um the band originated from a musical collective called Elephant Six, who also had a record label, Elephant Six Recordings. Um, but they're all sort of artists. I think they're around an area in Georgia. I can't remember what it's called in the US, but yeah, it was just a collection of artists that weren't like really making money off the work, but they wrote loads of music and they came together and played this stuff. But yeah, and this band formed, and the yeah this is like the best known work, and it's often cited as like one of the best albums of all time. But it's kind of just it's folk and it's rock, um, but it's not sort of typical. You have some weird elements. The production style is really like overcompressed and distorted a lot of the time. Quite like you know like underproduced kind of sound. But yeah, this one I mainly chose for its lyrics, but it has some beautiful instrumentation. It's just a simple doo-wop chord progression. It's like four chords on acoustic guitar, um, and like an easy rhythm. You don't get lost with it. But then they have like they're known for incorporating like trombones and horns sometimes. Like they'll have a trumpet melody in certain parts of their songs when the vocals break. But it has a lovely trombone break, and it also has a lot of like I think they use an old radio and sort of use the tuning to like pitch it up and down. Things like that. So it's got a lot of noise going on as well as the easygoing song. But yeah, for me it's the lyrics, and it's the album is known for having really surreal and weird lyrics to it, um, that you don't really know what he's talking about. There's a whole other rabbit hole that he read the Diary of a Young Girl, Anne Frank's diary,
Okay.
and it it like brought him to tears, and he had this is sorry lead singer Jeff Mangum is who I mean. He read it, it brought him to tears, and he started to have like dreams about going back and saving her in a time machine and things like that. And there's allusions to that in the lyrics, but and it's that's kind of weird. Doesn't have an inherent message, but this song, I think, to me is just kind of about one of those. Just about life in general, or to me it encompasses like it encompasses what life is from an artistic perspective. I like songs that do that, whether it's through the lyrics or whether it's completely instrumental. But I kind of think that just the airplane over the sea is just kind of a metaphor for life. But a lot of the lyrics are like, um, It says, and one day we will die and our ashes will fly in the airplane over the sea. And obviously that's just about how we'll all die eventually. But the final lyric of the song, which is really, like really, really like sort of hits and definitely shows that it's, to an extent, it's just about life. He says, how strange it is to be anything at all. And I mean, it's just something I think about a lot, is it's such a small chance that we'd ever be born or live. You know, it's a very philosophical album, but yeah, it goes into that thing of a certain gratuity for life despite suffering and things like that.
It's funny, isn't it? I was watching an interview with Jimmy Carr, the comedian of all people,
Yeah.
and he talked about that, and he says somebody said to him, I think it was Stephen Bartlett was interviewing him on his podcast, and he says, "What do you think the meaning of life is?" And he says, "To live, kind of to live every day, you know, to live your life every day, because the odds of us being here are insane, infinite. When you think about, you know, it's about your mum and dad getting together, and then their parents, and you can keep going back, you know, billions of years effectively to, you know, to the Big Bang and the you know, the Great Grey Soup before it all happened, and the odds of us actually being here, the odds of us sitting here having this conversation now are absolutely insane when you consider we've never met before. There is obviously there's a link that binds us that put this conversation together, but we've never met before. The odds of something like that are incredibly philosophical, and I like you, I love when an artist captures that kind of, I don't want to say existential crisis, but it is almost kind of,
Existentialism.
yeah. What's it all about? What's, you know, what it's, and it's that, yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to think about about it, you know.
I'm very into my philosophy, so
Yeah, and likewise, you know, you know, my wife thinks it's all a bit woo woo, you know. She thinks it's a bit, but I kind of I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff around that kind of thing, and you know, I don't know what the meaning of life is, but I do like Jimmy Carr's idea that, you know, the idea is just to live your best life you can every day.
yeah. And I think it shows that. I remember in, obviously it's not related, but in one of my favourite books, it has a lot of, it's an amazing book, but it talks about it's called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Now that I've mentioned it, I feel like I've
Yeah,
said the name.
you're gonna tell us, yeah.
But yeah, it talks about how like every the only reason the main character and his lover have met is a series of coincidences, and I think it kind of says that how strange it is, because everything is just a series of events that just happened, but it could have been another way.
Yeah, and it's really strange because I'm not religious by any stretch of the imagination, um, and I often get asked, you know, about that kind of philosophy, and it's funny because I don't like to think that my entire life is mapped out for me, but I don't believe in coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. I really genuinely do believe that. I think, you know, you might not always find out what that reason is. It
Yeah,
might be to set another um, another hair running in another direction somewhere else, and it may never affect me. But I don't believe in coincidence. Everything happens for
yeah.
a reason and a
Well, I don't mean
purpose.
coincidences in
But yeah, no,
but yeah, yeah. It's just a series of
but
consequences, and
but people do give it a name. They put a tag on it. Oh, wow, that's coincidental. I don't believe in
yeah,
coincidences. There's things, and I think about social engineering and all that kind of stuff all the time, and how people use it to manipulate coincidences and situations, which is
yeah,
why I'm maybe a bit cynical about about all that kind of stuff. But yeah, fascinating stuff. That's another podcast, that, mate, isn't it? Philosophy. That's but interestingly, a lot of music is philosophy, isn't it? A lot of songs, and like I mentioned to you, I particularly love lyrics. In fact,
yeah,
the
yeah,
reason we're sitting here doing this podcast now, I'll tell you a little story. I think I would be, going off the date of the song, I think I would be 5 years old, and I have a sister 5 years older than me, so she'd be 10. and there's a song by a band called Renaissance. I don't know if you've come across them. And they have a song called the Northern Lights. And I remember my sister telling me, we were listening to a song. There was another song out at the time called, I forget the name of the artist, and it was called Superman. And it was a very strange song. And
Oh,
Laurie,
yeah,
she
yeah,
it just goes
yeah,
all the way
yeah.
through.
It's got quite nice lyrics. That one I listened to it just the other day.
And I asked my sister, because obviously Superman, and that was the time the movie Superman, and I was a child, and it's kind of what's that song about? And she's, oh, it's about Superman, obviously, and it's like all songs have got a story. There's a story in every song, is what she said to me. And the very next song was Renaissance, the Northern Lights. And says, so what's this about? Just like you do, 5-year-old, why? What's this one about? And she says, oh, it's about the Northern Lights. I said, well, what are the Northern Lights? So she explained to me what the Northern Lights are. And that set me, from then on, I was obsessed with what songs were about. And then you get into what, interestingly, flip side that coin as well. My other passion in life is I actually photograph the Northern Lights, because I became obsessed with the aurora and the Northern Lights at that point as well. But yeah, digging into songs, and then like you mentioned as well, I like to know what was going on in the artist's mind when they wrote that song, and what they were thinking about, and So yeah, I think we probably share a lot in common
Yeah,
in that regard around the philosophy piece. And it's funny how much, when you actually listen to some lyrics of some songs, even popular stuff on you think that's a bit of a pop song, where you listen to the lyrics and you think, hang on, there's a profound message there.
yeah,
But it just passes most people by, because it's just a nice song to sing along to when they're in the car or doing the housework or whatever.
yeah. I love to analyze it, but it's the same with instrumental stuff. I feel like a lot of people think you can't, because the message isn't directly spoken through the song because there's no words. Think people maybe get the idea that you can't express much of a message. Like, you can make it sound sad, or you make it sound happy, but that's it. But no, I think there's just as much said in the exact length of a note, or the tone of a note, or the choice of a collection of notes, and the choice of speed, and the choice of time signature that expresses some subtle message just as much as lyrics. But
So
yeah, of course lyrics are more.
in my day job, one of the things I tell people on a regular basis, and it is the maddest statistic, I still think it's the maddest statistic in the world, is that 80% of all communication is non-verbal. Very little comes out of your mouth when you're actually communicating with somebody. It's facial, it's body language, it's eye contact, proximity, tone, intonation. Obviously, that is verbal, but it all ties together. It's not just the words. And I totally get what you're saying. It's like I'll go back to, and only because I've listened to a lot of Pink Floyd. You can listen to a lot of the instrumental stuff of Pink Floyd, or even some of my other favourite bands. I'm very into my kind of 70s, 80s rock,
Yeah,
kind of heavy metal, I suppose. But heavy metal's not heavy. Do you know what I mean?
like Black Sabbath heavy metal.
As people call it. And a lot of that instrumental stuff, when you listen to it, there's messages. You get the message, or either that, or it's just you interpret the way you think, and it means to you what you want it to mean. And I think that the artists will probably be good with that anyway, because at the end of the day, they write it because they love doing what they do, but they also write it for people to listen to, and So yeah, I get that. I think instrumental. Yeah, my I don't know whether you've listened to much of the Shadows. Are you familiar with any the Shadows at all? So popular for being Cliff Richard's backing band in the '60s, but had a very, very successful career on their own without a singer. There was no singer. So Hank Marvin was the kind of the lead guitarist. He was kind of the main man, but all of their work was instrumental. And I mean, it is kind of it's definitely mainstream. It was radio, kind of radio fodder back in the 60s. But have a listen to like something like Apache or the Foot Tapper, or and you can hear happy songs, you can hear sad songs. I mean, Apache is very much it is about what it sounds like, and when you listen to it, you can tell. Lends itself to music score for movies very well. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So no, I'm with you 100% there. That a lot of people don't give instrumental music the credit, and it can be just as profound and meaningful as the lyrics in a song.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
Cool.
one more thing about this. So, well, the album as a whole, with this album, but also um, links to the first to Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, Charles Mingus. Is that for me, like the best albums that I've listened to, they sort of, when I listen to them, they just they have like a not just a they have like a physical space in my head almost. It's like a sort of abstract. I can't describe what it looks like specifically, but an abstract sort of room, or like a scene, you know, or a world. Sort of with the Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, it's just kind of it's a little bit dark. It's hollow. It's quite vast, but it's also it's like the Stevie Wonder song. It's filled with love and such. And then for that album, in the airplane over the sea, it's, well, maybe lends a bit from the name, but it's sort of ocean, lighthouse. You stood just, and it's cold. It's like bleak, but it's also really profound, and it feels like you know, I can just see myself standing, looking at the ocean, thinking about existence, because that is kind of what the album is. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
some of the best albums that they create a place or an image in your mind vividly.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I'm smiling because I absolutely get you. I understand that completely. And when I listen some of the obviously we have very different tastes in music, but some of the music that I listen to, and still there's still some albums that I revisit today that, you know, from like the 80s and things, when music was really influential in my life, and I'll listen to them in track order,
Yeah,
and there's nothing better than just getting a set of headphones on and sitting back and shutting your eyes and going to that place. And one, I mean, Marillion's Misplaced Childhood is a really, really that's kind of their Marillion's opus album. And when you listen to it, how all the songs bleed into one another, and it tells a story from the first song to the end. But it's got you standing on the bank of the river, you know, as the mist crawls in. The lyrics are almost poetic. Really, really kind of stirs your soul and makes you feel something. And I think that's what it's supposed to do. So, and I'm totally with you
I think
with that.
I think track order. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think something people don't think about when they listen to like pop albums, because they think it's just a collection of songs. But there's always like a choice to the order, and it's, yeah. And I'm like, when someone tells me to listen to an album, they're like, oh, just listen to. I'm like, no, I have to listen to all the songs as the artist intended, because it's yeah. And I gave us a thing on this in English when we had to give a presentation. Is about how music became entertainment instead of a form of art, and that's the thing. It's a form of art. Like you have to you have to see a painting in the context that the artist wanted. So the same with an album.
You are preaching to the converted. I've you know, I'm sure I've watched many documentaries. I've watched many interviews. I've spoken to some of I've been fortunate enough to speak to some of my favourite artists. Some of them are unfortunately have left us now. Some of them are still with us. And it never ceases to amaze me how much thought goes into the order of an album. I mean, my favourite album of all time, you don't need to know this, but my favourite album of all time is Hysteria by Def Leppard. Pretty much hair rock, throwaway kind of 70s, 80s, 1987 album. To a lot of people, it's just throwaway American kind of big air rock. To me, so much more, a collection of songs with some profound lyrics, important to me in my life because they were a formative point in my life. But when you listen to that album in track order, in fact, what a lot of people don't know is they created a comic book to go with the album. and it's incredibly rare now. I mean, it's like hundreds of thousands of pounds to get a copy of it. But in one of the videos, they use this comic book to tell the story,
Yeah.
and the comic follows the album. Duh,
Yeah.
you know, and you're like, people just, and then dare I say, dickheads just press shuffle, and you just, it's yeah. And I am guilty when me and my wife go on road trips. I build playlists.
Oh yeah.
We
Of
just
course,
random,
you do it when you're
random
just listening
songs
in the background. Yeah, of
and
course.
shuffle. But if I'm on my own, quite often, if I'm on my own and I choose an album, whether it's Def Leppard, whether it's Duran Duran's Rio, whether it's Pink Floyd, Dark Side or whatever, Wish You Were Here or whatever, just track order.
Yeah.
The Wall. I've lost count of the amount of times I've fallen asleep with my headphones on in darkness, just listening at the wall. It's yeah, and I think if people who aren't really into music probably just don't understand that. But I think when you start to dig a bit deeper than the entertainment value, it's definitely there, isn't it? It's as you say, it's an art form, and these people are artists, and should be treated as such, and that their work should be given the whether you appreciate that artist or not, their work should be given the credit that it's worthy of. Yeah. Covered a lot of ground there, mate, didn't we? Your last choice, this made me laugh. A quick one before the eternal worm devours Connecticut. There's an album. There's a song title by Have a Nice Life.
Yeah.
Tell me about these people, because I'd not heard about these guys at all.
This is the only band I chose where I'm not really super into the band itself. I mean, like, I love Charles Mingus. I love jazz from every era. I love Snarky Puppy. I love Stevie Wonder, and I've listened to both of Neutral Milk Hotel's albums. But I listened to about half of this album that this song is from. It's called Death Consciousness, and they're like an art rock band. I wouldn't say they're kind of like Pink Floyd, but that.
Yeah.
Interesting rock, that's you can listen to and maybe sing along to, but it's also about the message. But the album is it's a concept album about death, about like awareness of death, obviously death consciousness, but yeah, and it's sort of got this quite dark sound. Some of the songs have like a kind of rhythm to it. This one's it doesn't really have any drums. The guitar plays this arpeggio, which it does have a rhythm, but it's very focused. It's very much a soundscape. But I don't know, the reason I chose this one, I think when you look at the name, it seems really random, and it obviously is. I always find it quite funny, and how long it is. It's just awful to have to say to people the name, but I think. I mean, it's not too hard to read it. It's like a brief moment before everything gets destroyed. I think it's sort of about how, about how beauty just lives in between the cracks of struggle and suffering and various life events. And I think this song is kind of about how there can still be beauty in when you're about to be devoured by an eternal worm. But yeah, when you listen to the song, it's just this 8-minute sort of soundscape kind of ambient thing, but it feels like when you're looking at like a sunset, it feels like when you're just looking at this beautiful scene and you just want to stand there forever. It's like, again, it has no words. The rest of the album does have vocals in it, but this song is just instrumental. But it can make me cry, definitely. But yeah, it kind of captures this nice beauty. But there's a lot of other songs I was contemplating to fill that, to go in that spot of an ambient pick, like Number 3 by Aphex Twin, and like the Buckethead stuff. There's a lot of stuff I could have chosen. And there's a lot of stuff I didn't choose because I didn't want to choose too many songs.
Well,
But
hold that
this,
thought,
I don't-
because what I'll tell you, Jude, is um, we have an amazing conversation. So if you're up for it, we'll have you back and we'll do some more choices, mate. Because
yeah,
the way you speak about your choices is almost poetic. Like I say, you've kind of converted me to kind of want to go away and just listen to some of this stuff now and kind of revisit. I like to say I always have a listen, so I can kind of get a feel for it. But you've kind of made me want to go back and revisit some of it, just through the way you speak about it. And I think that speaks volumes to you and the way you talk about the music, which is really passionate. And you obviously show your creative, your creative sides coming through very clearly, mate. So if you're up for that, I'll be definitely up for another chat like
yeah,
this.
definitely.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
I don't think I have much more to say. It's just beautiful. It's just plain beautiful. But yeah, like looking back again. There's a lot of picks I could have. There's a lot of other picks I could have included. But yeah, this one it's not like a band that I'm into, but it's just a song that I heard and then I listened to it a lot because it feels like, like it captures multiple memories. Often obviously a certain song you listen to at a certain time holds one memory, but I feel like this one is just like, the memory book that you look at on your deathbed or something. It's very all encompassing.
Wow, that's
But
that's big. Yeah, I often say and I've said this on other episodes of the podcast before. To me, music is to the ears what the smell of fresh cut grass is to the nose. A piece of music can just transport you somewhere,
yeah,
to a place and time where you've not been for. They say the past is another island, but you listen to that right piece of music and you can be right there. Like you can smell the smells and hear the sounds
yeah,
and you can almost touch it. If that music engages you to that, links you to that thing.
yeah,
So yeah, again, very profound.
yeah. Memory's always like something that, like, obviously people love nostalgia, but I've sort of thought about this a lot. Sometimes I'll write poetry, and I've sort of like reflected on this idea when I'm like writing stuff. But it's like, if we didn't have memory, we wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't be who we are. It's almost one of the most important things we have because it is it is us. It's all of our internal data. So when you've got a song that brings that all back so vividly, it it it's just it's a feeling you can't get anywhere else. It just hits you.
Yeah, and it's obviously memories. They shape who we are, and
Yeah,
the people that we become. Where the name of the podcast, music that left its mark. It leaves its mark on you. It leaves a scar, whether that's a positive or a negative, whether it's happy or sad. Always, you mentioned it's a song that can bring you to tears. It can make you cry. I always want to listen to songs that make people cry,
yeah,
because I have my songs that trigger me, but for very different. Obviously, we've all got different reasons as to why they do that. So yeah, I'm always interested in and to try and get to the essence of what it is that stirs people. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast. It's
yeah,
about bringing people together. I think music is a wonderful connector. It connects people. It connects us to places and times that have passed. I think it can help people through difficult times. People when they're struggling with mental health. Sometimes music is the thing that gets them through. I always remember. I was a big fan back in the day of Adamant, and Adamant went. He kind of went a bit off the rails, and he was kind of sectioned to a mental health hospital, and people visited him and everything. And one day, somebody visited him and they brought him a guitar,
mm,
just an acoustic
yeah,
guitar, and that was the beginning of his road to recovery. And he said everybody needs a friend like that. They just brought him
Yeah.
a guitar for something. They didn't bring him a book or grapes or flowers or just an acoustic guitar. And because he's a musician, he was an artist. Obviously, a troubled soul. Fortunately, still with us and touring again now. But that's his story. That somebody gave him a guitar and that helped him through that time in his life when he was really struggling with mental health. Again, it's the stuff like that that really fascinates me about music. That it's got that power. And like he said, many people just see it as entertainment, but it's so powerful and so profound. I think you've discovered that though very early on,
Yeah. Thank you.
which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You, yeah. So moving forward, any plans to perform in the near future, or are you involved in any band projects, Jude? Or
Well, as we discussed like before we started recording, I've got the band from secondary school, which I still hope we maybe get gigs, but that's just sort of for, I guess, for old time's sake or for the sake of having fun as friends, and playing like, nice songs, songs again, songs that I do like, but it's very much like indie or rock or more common stuff, but it's definitely still touching a lot of, and it holds a lot of memories with that band and with friends. But so I hope maybe to get some gigs, but it's not my most serious thing. Then I've sort of been asked to be in a few bands at college. Um, I think I'm in one that sort of isn't going in the direction that I really thought it would, and it's not my thing. It's kind of indie, which just is a bit boring for me and not even really very emotional, so I'm not sort of as into that. But just yesterday, someone, a guitarist in my class, asked me and my friend, person who I made friends with when I started college, who's a really great drummer, if we want to start a prog band. It'll probably be like prog metal, but yeah, and that's the most interesting inquiry I've had, the most interesting request, because it would be so fun to write, because it can be really complex, and therefore it's actually fun to play. It doesn't get boring. But yeah, and I think it's going to be, well, it's just going to be instrumental. I think we're playing just original material as well, so I'll just be able to write all my own like cool, crazy songs. But yeah, I mean, some like, and then I'm in this other band and we're playing some decent songs, some Radiohead, and I'm enjoying that. But yeah, there's sort of, yeah, like I don't want to. I've realised that I don't want to pursue things that I don't think I would enjoy, and I went into it because I thought, got told we might play some funky things. I was like, okay, you know, but yeah, it's not panning out on that front. But yeah, I mean, because I want to be a jazz musician, I maybe it might be a bit pretentious, but I always try to have this like integrity, and a lot of people sell out or lose their integrity, but I don't think I'd ever. I think I would hate myself if I did. I'd sort of rather starve than not play not play music or sell out. But yeah, so the prospect of the prog band is very exciting, and yeah, there's a lot of ventures to be done, and some of my friends that play various instruments, we like get together and jam, and it's really fun because like in secondary schools, a lot like most people sort of just played instruments as they were taught, so they couldn't improvise. But we've been just making stuff up, so it means I get to just solo and improvise solos on keyboards or bass loads, and I think I'm definitely better playing with people because there's a lot of interaction, and if you have an idea, you can tell someone, like play this, and it comes to life immediately. It's not just sort of on an iPad. It's not just it's not sort of stationary, you know. It's like a nice changing thing. So yeah, I'm definitely like in a good place, and there seems to be good prospects.
Cool. I can see how the prog stuff would be appealing, because I'm again, you mentioned prog and I immediately think back to some of the early Genesis stuff, and the big prog rock bands of the 70s, and the late 70s, early 80s, and I can see the jazz influence. It's
Yeah,
all, it's
definitely.
that kind of,
People don't think about it, but yeah.
it can go anywhere. Yeah, I'm thinking about particularly things like Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis, and things which are pretty obscure if you're not a Genesis fan. And I'm not a massive Genesis fan. Um, the benefit of having an older sister was she always had boyfriends who had different tastes in music. So one week I was listening to Genesis, the next I was listening to Sabbath, or Wishbone Ash, or whoever, and that kind of all played its part in kind of influencing me in music. So yeah, I can see how that would appeal, and I'd keep in touch with that. I'd be keen to see how that unfolds, and where that goes. That would be really good. Fantastic. So lots going on for the future, mate.
Yeah, hopefully.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, I've really enjoyed our chat, Jude. Thanks for joining us today. For those of you that want to listen to the songs, there will be links to the playlists in the description and the bio. Go and have a listen to some of this stuff, because it's different. Educate yourself, and that's what it's all about, listening to new stuff.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Jude, and we will catch up soon.
Yeah, thank you. Very good.